SCP-7719 The Harrison Gray Conspiracy. Object Class Euclid. Special Containment Protocol. As of the 7th of April 2006, all data and research regarding SCP-7719 has been relegated to Site-57 for analysis. All television broadcasts originating from and received by North America are to be consistently monitored by a combination of Foundation AICs and appointed surveyors. These positions are to also analyze reports regarding SCP-7719 instances online, with AICs recording and cataloging descriptions to be overviewed by researchers in order to attest to their validity as anomalous incidents. Once confirmed, Disinformation Campaign 7719 is to be enacted in order to convince witnesses that they were privy to a form of mass media alternate reality game. If Disinformation Campaign 7719 is not sufficient enough to stifle interest into or conversations regarding SCP-7719, individuals' locations are to be tagged for administration of Class C amnestics within the week. If a Foundation employee witnesses an instance of SCP-7719, they are to immediately report it through the proper channels in order to report its contents. Analysis of SCP-7719-1 instances and their capabilities is to be relegated to top priority in regards to research towards SCP-7719. Description: SCP-7719 is the net classification for a series of interconnected anomalous television broadcasts airing in North America. Instances of SCP-7719 are sporadic signal interruptions that temporarily hijack and replace a station's original broadcast. Such instances typically begin with a random burst of analog tape static, despite most modern standard television broadcasts consisting of digital transmissions. This discrepancy is not currently understood. It also appears that SCP-7719 instances air on television only when a viewer is present. There are currently no records or reports stating that SCP-7719 broadcast incidents occur without an individual there to watch the broadcast. SCP-7719's primary anomalous effect is their inability to be recorded using any technologically visual medium. Footnote 1. VHS tapes, digital cameras, photography, etc. Any and all methods of direct recording, either analog or digital, have proven to be unsuccessful. All attempts to record an SCP-7719 broadcast results in standard, unaltered stills and recordings of the television station's actual programming. SCP-7719's secondary anomalous effect is the ubiquitous presence of inhuman, though humanoid, creatures in all broadcasts, hereafter referred to as SCP-7719-1 within this document. Addendum 7719-1 SCP-7719 instances recovered descriptions. Abridged. It was late. Really late. I'm talking like it's 4 in the morning and your shift starts at 7:30 kind of late. At that point, I had been sitting on my couch rotting for what felt like forever. I was exhausted from my last shift, but apparently, I wasn't exhausted enough to actually black out. The TV was on. I think it was Adult Swim, though I can't really be sure. I'd stopped actually paying attention to it long past. I think the drudgery was enough at that rate. I was starting to get bogged down by the actual deep exhaustion that was quickly catching up. I closed my eyes, started feeling the tug of sleep, when suddenly, they were open again. And there was noise. Loud noise. I think it was static, but then again it was so loud it felt kind of like it was boring straight through my head. My TV was showing a long, dark hallway. The only light was ambient, the camera struggling to pull in any light whatsoever to show the scene. At the end of the hallway, about 30 feet away, was an open doorway, completely pitch black past the threshold. I couldn't help but watch, the screen crackling and warping gently, reminding me of the VHS tapes we used to watch as kids. After a while, there was a soft snuffling noise, and then something dashed across the doorway, quickly, as though it didn't want to be seen. I don't remember how it looked, just that it had antlers. Michael Lean, 38, civilian, 28th of October, 2014. Oh, so it wasn't really me that watched it. It was actually my son. Lauren and I thought it would be a good idea to let Cooper stay home since the poor boy could barely keep his food down. I made sure to tell him that his stay was going to be nothing but rest, soup, and blankets, but you know how kids are. The little TV in his room was on for the entire morning, but I didn't make a fuss since I was already, honestly, felt so bad for him. Let him enjoy his cartoons and sitcoms. Hopefully they'd help dissolve that miserable expression he'd been holding since the moment he woke up. I'd been making Cooper a small bowl of tomato soup when, for some reason, I tuned back into the sounds of the kitchen. A few doors down the hall, I could hear Cooper's TV, but the noises it was making caught me a little off guard. It sounded like one of those emergency alert broadcasts. The one with the short blaring sirens that tell you if a hurricane is coming. There were voices too. They weren't robotic, and they were speaking frantically. I stopped what I was doing to go check on Cooper, mainly to touch base and see if he was maybe watching something a little bit too out of range for his age. When I walked up to the doorway, I saw my son, fists tightly clenching the edge of his covers, pulling up to his neck. I asked him if he was okay, turning to see the TV on his dresser. It was a bit upsetting, actually. It was the last few seconds, but what I was seeing was what looked like a newsroom, with a man in a suit nervously signing off the segment. Except it wasn't really a man, not a human one at first. I can list it for you. Head of a golden retriever, eyes of a snake, antelope antlers. Past the neck, the fur gave way to these slimy scales. I can't tell if they're more fishy or if they're more lizardy. Its hands were sharp and ended in talons, those of a hawk's. The last words I caught were something along the lines of, "Be aware" or "Stay alert," something telling the viewer to watch and be wary. The screen then flickered and popped, the thing's face suddenly human. A man with a brunette comb-over and thick-rimmed glasses, before switching back to the creature, and then immediately replaced with a title card that read, "This concludes our public announcement," in all capital letters. Then, it was gone. Instantly switched to the middle of an episode of The Sweet Life. I did end up getting sick that week myself and had to take a bit off work, but I didn't, and still don't give a shit about that. Cooper still needs, someone around so he could fall asleep, and I don't blame him for asking. Irene Cordova, 27, civilian. 3rd of March, 2007. 7719 instance. Room 209, Best Western Massanet, Iowa, 220 Stratham Road. Appears as sitcom. 5 people standing and talking in kitchen, 3 kids, 2 parents. Mother and 2 of children are 7719-1 instances. Mother has octoploid head. 1 child resembles cross between Komodo dragon and domestic chicken. Other resembles badger with praying mantis mandibles. Mother chastising her children, Komodo dragon and human daughter, for breaking vase in living room. Badger starts scooting out of scene. Father shakes head and walks child back center set. Studio laughter. Mom chastises all children. Studio audience ohs in apprehension. Pause. Mom repeats line. Looks off screen. Motions W hands. Mouths something illegible. Sentence ends with running. Points directly at camera. Badger child stops paying attention. Turns and looks directly at camera as mom continues motioning to something off screen. Child places hand on face, looks down at own hand. Child then looks around set. Quick burst of tape static. Sitcom intro showing a family sitting on couch, all facing camera with big smiles. All individuals are human. More static. Child begins screaming as clip distorts and pitches his voice increasingly higher. All voices human. More static. Text buried in. Stay alert and hot. Illegible, illegible, illegible. Survival, revival. Clip ends. Leland Rhodes, 35. Foundation agent. 18th of August, 2010. So, the nightmare. In it, I was watching TV, but I couldn't move. I was staring at the screen with my quilt bunched up around my mouth. I didn't do anything, could only watch. Nothing interesting was on. I'd put on the History Channel to fall asleep to, but the show that was playing didn't look like it was from the History Channel. It looked like it was this hunting show, the kinds where they search for Bigfoot and big scary lake monsters. Handheld camera, shaky movements, people breathing heavy. There was this moment. They were watching a patch of the forest with night vision on, except instead of green, it all burned red. The rig gently rose and fell with the cameraman's breathing. It was calm. There was just breathing in the crickets. Then a twig snapped behind everyone. The camera rolls around and you see it. Something standing behind them. Large eyes that popped out of its head, skin like a bloated corpse, gills and clawed fingers, vestigial arms that were barely long enough to function. It reaches out towards the cameraman and takes a few steps forward. Sirens. Sirens, sirens. Like the tornado warning that I heard throughout my childhood. Like the storm was bearing down on me at that very minute. Its eyes were swiveling loose and lazy in its head. So help me God, they can see me. They can see me. They can see me. I woke up screaming. The TV is playing the History Channel and it's nearly 6 a.m. Myrtle Schaefer, 70, civilian. 26th of May, 2003. We usually let them watch a half hour of cartoons in between the two lessons. I don't know why I didn't just turn it off when it started. I guess I assumed it could be a good teaching moment for the kids, you know. Let them watch a communion ceremony from another sect and then compare and contrast the differences that makes all of us special in God's eyes. I don't know why I didn't question it, is the thing. It just shifted. First, it's the angel coming to Mary to tell her she's carrying the Lord's Son. Then it fades into a home movie of a First Communion. It was from a high point, probably second floor seating near the back of the chapel. A girl walked down the aisle wearing a pretty white dress. She wore a crown of white flowers as well, as she hesitantly took each step up to where the priest stood. The camera zoomed, and I could see the back of her head, partially obscured by a white veil. She eventually made it and held her hands out to the priest. He fed her the communion, and she turned around to face the congregation. One of my kids gasped, and I turned to ask what was wrong. In that moment, more and more children began to react, and I quickly glanced at the screen to see what it was before realizing. The girl had collapsed to the ground, motionless. Her veil had fallen off in the process, revealing her head to be that of a jackal's. It looked like there were tears in her eyes, but the lines ran thick and dark against her fur. I don't think they were tears. The priest stood over her, triumphantly, and as he took a deep breath and opened his mouth to bellow, the congregation began to scream. The person holding the camera drops it. The screaming grows louder. By then, I'd been able to get my hands on the remote to turn off the TV. Some of them were inconsolable. I worry about those ones the most. Christina Painter, 26, civilian. 14th of November, 1998. Addendum 7719-2. Despite the properties of all SCP-7719 broadcasts, Foundation scientist Carolina Wojciechowski was able to trace back an instance to a specific location as she witnessed the screening. The origin of the broadcast appeared to be a local television station labeled LMGC, positioned within Pelon, Pennsylvania, USA. 3 days post-discovery, on the 29th of June 2005, a small group of Foundation agents, accompanied by several mobile task force agents, approached the building only to find it empty and seemingly abandoned. While still in working condition with unobstructed plumbing and functioning electricity, the station appeared to not be in use despite its visible broadcasts. There were no current signs of management or employee presence, with accompanying signs that no individual had been present within the facility for some time. Footnote 2. Agents reported a thick layer of dust over most surfaces, cracked drywall, and minor signs of water damage, though there were no reports of vermin between all individuals. Analysis of various records found in meeting rooms and offices suggested that the station did not have a full team prior to circa 1997 to 2000. Those significant dates on records found within the building do not progress past 2003. The following notice was found within LMGC's main meeting room, multiple copies scattered across the central table and the floor. Specifically regarding the suppression and censorship of the following in all programming aired by LMGC. Profanity, also pertaining to the Lord's name. Nudity, sexual perversion, intimacy and affection between illegitimate couples, criticism or ridicule of the clergy, criticism or ridicule of the government and the Constitution, imagery pertaining to Richard G. Harrison's guideline set, partially summarized below, panic tones and demeanors, unprompted emergency announcements, also pertaining to non-standard emergency alerts, cross-signal interference, extravagant biologies. All procedures and techniques for media management are to be submitted to Mr. Hampton for finalization and production. If unclear when disclosing and distributing information to the proper channels and persons, please refer to Gray Guide Chapters 3 to 7 regarding identification tactics and undetectable discernment techniques. Consistent references to Richard Harrison and The Gray Guide are found throughout documentation and reports circulated within LMGC. Further investigation has been temporarily reassigned to various research departments as well as RISA. Addendum 7719-3. On the 2nd of July 2015, multiple television sets located within Site 57 began simultaneously broadcasting differing instances of SCP-7719. This also coincided with a mass failure of the site's alert protocol, causing alarm systems to activate in various locations across the area. Following the breach, a portion of Foundation staff requested leave or reassignment due to the stress caused by the incident. None of these submissions were granted. The following are some of the broadcasted phrases, recorded through staff interviews. All were seen interspersed over footage of a silent instance of SCP-7719-1 sitting alone in a dark room. Please do not cont. Interference, it is pain. Don't look at us. Turn it off, turn it O. Why are you doing this? Help us. Leave us be. Please, 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 please. Further investigative procedures are currently pending O5 approval. Thank you for listening to SCP-7719, The Harrison Gray Conspiracy by Quicksilvers. If you enjoyed this SCP, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Also, make sure to follow the link in the description to the SCP Wiki and vote up the article to support the author and the SCP Wiki as a whole. Also, a special thank you to all YouTube members and Ko-Fi donators. YouTube memberships of Confidential will have access to Saturday videos, and all members will have early access to videos. If you'd like to support the channel directly, please follow the Ko-Fi link. Links to both YouTube memberships and Ko-Fi are in the description. Thank you, and have a great weekend.